The problem of growing inequality in major cities from San Francisco to New York has become more severe and striking in the 21st century. Now, some of that is because of the rise of highly educated, highly skilled tech workers who are helping pump new life into Silicon Valley in California and Silicon Alley here in New York. At the same time, middle-class workers are being squeezed by stagnant wages, which we talk about a lot on this show, and a dearth of good manufacturing jobs. The problem has ignited a search for solutions to an issue that threatens not just the middle class, but the economic health of our cities, which are the engine of our entire economic growth. The people searching for solutions include New York City Comptroller Scott Stringer and urban theorist Rich Florida, who joins me now to discuss their joint mission to build what they're calling on-ramps of opportunity for the middle class. Scott, Richard, great to see you both. Thank you for being here. We talk so much on this show about how there are off-ramps for the middle class into poverty, and there are so few on-ramps. We have to really think of this consciously, Richard. You and I have talked about this many times. We have to think very consciously about how you create them. What answers are you coming up with?
Well, I mean, you set it up perfectly. You know, the old on-ramp, that old middle-class factory job, that good job, you know, paired with a maybe not the biggest house, but a nice house in the suburbs and a nice life for, you know, husband and wife and a family is gone. And what's happening is we're seeing this reurbanization that we also talk a lot about. You know, San Francisco is back. We were just talking about New York is back. Toronto, another city you're familiar with, back big time. These mega cities are back, and that's a good thing. Skilled people want to be there. Investment is flowing in. Global money is flowing in. Technology is coming back from the suburbs into the city. What happens, of course, is not only is our labor market splitting, our neighborhoods are splitting into the haves and have-nots. So what the comptroller has really catalyzed, beginning with a report he did about a year ago, and now work we're doing together, my team at NYU and the University of Toronto, his team at the comptroller's office, is trying to figure out how to build these, you know, we can talk about inequality, we can talk about the sorting by skill and education, but it's really about building a new middle class, providing affordable housing, better infrastructure, better jobs, better wages in these urban cores.
So here's the thing, Scott, you and I are neighbors on the Upper West Side of New York. You grew up in this city. Today, if you earn a regular living wage in New York City, it's hard to live here. It's hard to afford to live here. We love that people come up and buy our properties and increase our property values, and we love these statistics, but it's hard to be a middle-class person in a place like New York. What do we have to do?
Look, the middle class is being squeezed, and clearly we have to raise the minimum wage and we have to sort of lift people up. But I would argue that what Richard is saying is that we have to look at the creative economy, the high-tech economy, but we have to look at it not through the lens of a top-down approach. There are kids all over the city who believe that we are aspirational, that we have to give the kids the tools to compete in the 21st century economy. So when we look at our 5 boroughs and recognize that we could create shared office space and young people are being creative with apps and laptop computers, the economy is changing in New York City and it's exciting, but let's not leave out the kids from all our boroughs. So what I would argue, looking at Richard's landscape, that our job in government is to make sure our kids have the tools to compete.
What does that mean? Does that mean giving them certain skills in school?
Let's look at this. 100 science teachers, science technology teachers in the public school system, 1 computer science teacher for every 11,000 students. That's insane that we continue that status quo. Arts teachers only for the kids who live in wealthy neighborhoods, and when you look in central Brooklyn and the South Bronx, there's no arts education programs. Those are the tools kids need to compete in Richard's creative class economy.
Right. Richard, as Scott says, it does start with a good public education at an early age, but obviously if we know how to do this, it costs money to do it.
Well, I'd say there's about 4 or 5 points that we've been articulating, and we didn't have all the answers, but we're building this conversation, and through our partnership with our new program at NYU, this program on the creative cities at the School of Continuing and Professional Studies, we're going to get there. First thing is making an education that gets people ready for these jobs that are clustering here, the media jobs, the digital technology, making sure kids can code, they can build apps. We heard today in our program at NYU about taking kids, you know, kids who are in high school and threatening to drop out, giving them app skills, and they're going out and making $100 grand in their first job. Okay, got to do that. Second thing we got to do is, the comptroller said, we got to raise the minimum wage. We got to get it up to 13 or 15 bucks, maybe even a little higher, 50 to 60% of the local median wage. We've got to do that. Third thing the comptroller is calling for is an emerging business council. Getting these CEOs together, the people who really get it, who want to make service jobs better, defining the best practices, creating the best practices, and diffusing them. But then there's two other points of this plan. The mayor has talked about affordable housing, and we heard today from young journalists who are now established journalists saying if they came here 15 years ago, they couldn't afford to live here. So we've got to get affordable housing. The comptroller's been on this transit-oriented development, density. We've got to get around these zoning rules that are inhibiting building. But he said it the best, and I hope you elaborate on this. It's an infrastructure and ecosystem that goes beyond affordable housing. It's making sure we have the investments in transit so you can commute a little bit, maybe a little further, connecting those parts of Queens and other parts of our city that are disconnected.
But is that going to happen? I mean, this is a big city. It's a big city with a lot of politics. It's hard to get things done. Things move. It's an efficient city, but things move slowly sometimes. Can we change it?
If we're going to be competitive with cities around the world, there's no choice in the matter. We do have to expand our transit infrastructure. We can't rely on a system that was built 100 years ago for an economy that, quite frankly, is outdated. So rather than build out a transit system where people are coming to work to Manhattan and then going back out to the other boroughs, so to speak, we have to build a interborough transportation system. One of the things that this collaboration is about is we're putting academic, practical solution and bringing people in to have this discussion. We are not at odds with business, and we are not at odds with community-based organizations. But while I support passionately a raise in the minimum wage, and will argue that from Albany to the Council of the City of New York, it's not enough.
Gentlemen, I'm glad you're pursuing this, and it is, as you said, part of the whole exercise. It's not just about minimum wage, but it's about making sure we are prepared for the future. So thank you, and we'll keep very closely associated with it. That is Scott Stringer. He's the comptroller of the City of New York, and Richard Florida, who is a professor at the NYU School of Continuing and Professional Studies and a director of the Martin Prosperity Institute at the University.